Hey guys, Akariss here, bringing you another Fire Emblem Heroes video. Today's video is going to be a bit more subjective, a bit more opinionated, a bit more fun. So, not much to learn, but maybe there is. So, let's jump into it.
Let the lesson begin.
Alright, so if you watched I think it was about a month ago or so, maybe a couple weeks ago, I did a Barracks video. And there's definitely a lot in there. Like, it feels like my barracks is pretty cluttered. In fact, if you look at the screenshot here, it's 298 out of 300. I wouldn't blame you for not understanding what's going on with my barracks nowadays. I think barracks of like a couple of years ago in Heroes were much more concise. You kind of knew what people were investing in. But now there's like so many game modes that you pretty much have a very diversified cast of many invested units if you've been playing a while. So I'm going to use this video as kind of like a follow-up to my Barracks video, and of course if you haven't watched that, maybe you should before this, and actually just talk about my favorite characters in Heroes, and I guess to a lesser extent the Fire Emblem franchise in general. Although there are definitely a lot of characters I won't mention in this video, because if I did, this video would probably be like an hour or two long. So sit back and just enjoy the vid, because I'm going to basically just talk about my favorite characters and what makes them my favorite, maybe some history or story on those specific characters and why they matter to me, whether that's through the Twitch or YouTube experience, history behind it, just me playing Heroes, or just me being a small like kid and enjoying the characters, whatever they might be. So yeah, let's actually go straight into it. That's my barracks, but it's much more extensive if you go watch the other video. Here's where we'll begin, and this is actually, I think, in alphabetical order. I got a couple picks here, and I'll try to categorize everyone at the end of this. I'll take a bunch of characters and tell you as simply as I can why they fit into certain areas. So first up is Ashnard, and he's not plus 10. But if you're an F2P player, you'll understand that resources are very limited, so I don't actually like... I just like the idea of having a character and not necessarily having to max a character, because maxing character is a huge resource commitment, and I honestly, in a lot of cases, you don't need to max a character to see success. A lot of success in the game just comes down to good gameplay, good execution, good preparing, good planning, and at the end of the day, you don't really need to like plus 10 every unit to succeed. That might be a big myth. The only mode where that actually matters is basically Arena, because that's just how the ranking works. But every other mode you can get by with lower invested units. So here's Ashnard. Ashnard is a great villain, and I like him because he was a great like motivator for me as a kid to like play Ike's game and be like, man, I just want to beat up this guy because he's just like bad. And as I grew older, and now at this age, he actually has a pretty good backstory to him. And I'm not going to spend the video spoiling it, but man, this guy, you can understand the reasoning behind his villainous. So as a character, Ashnard is pretty cool, and I'm so glad he's in Heroes. Next up is Aversa. Aversa is... Again, this is not necessarily more character here, but definitely more about the design and the artistic style of this character and how it really is unique. So, and I guess this somewhat applies to Gangrel as well. If you've played Awakening, you know, like the Pledgians are, I don't know how to put this, but like, I guess shady in a way. So and they're tattooed, and they have this really like artistic style that I really like about it and always appealed to me. So Versa being in the game and when she was released was also like, okay, that's a cool character. I really like that design. So this is obviously more of a, okay, I like how she looks, so let's do it. Okay, next up is Hector, and Hector has been around a long time. I think he was like, oh my god, I gotta like play as Hector in Heroes back in like 2017, but I'm so glad he aged well to basically be a favorite that I can use in a meta. That is one of the best things you can have in a game like this, so Hector really stands out for me because I can just use him at +1, I don't have to worry about spending orbs to make him higher, and he gets the job done. But I guess the main appeal of Hector for me is the nostalgia, and that's always going to be a thing that I think appeals to most people. How do you define your favorites? So for me, this would be like, okay, Hector is definitely like a nostalgic character, and it just feels good to use him, see his artwork, and then Patrick Sight's great voice talent behind it. Next up is Brunnya. And Brunnya was like, to me, a character that I invested into Not only because I wanted to like understand the character more, like when you play Fire Emblem 6, it feels like some characters don't get fleshed out as much as they should. Brunnya felt like a character that should have been fleshed out more, and I think this is probably because of Thune and Zephyl basically took all the spotlight and Brunnya got nothing. So from a character perspective, it's satisfying to use a character that doesn't get much attention, and we'll cover another one later who this also applies to. But Brunnya is a great character example of enjoying, you know, that gameplay experience. Someone who's reliable and consistent in the gameplay, and you sort of build a bond to it. I'll take a moment here to tell you guys that none of these builds are optimal. This is just screenshots out of my barracks and whatever seals and skills they had equipped. Don't take this at face value. These are not optimal builds in any way. Okay, don't like watch this and be like, oh my god, why does he have no seal, or why is there defense res bond and stuff. Like don't look at it like that. Okay guys, next up is Camilla. And actually, to probably a lot of people's surprise, if you don't know me very well, Camilla I actually like because of the character, the actual writing behind it. If you played Fates, Camilla is actually one of the most well-written characters in Fates, despite the design of the character, which I think a lot of people might appreciate. Maybe not this art, because I know that one is contentious, but generally speaking, most people would just see Camilla and say there's no way that character is written well. But again, I'm not going to spoil writing in this video. I'm just going to tell you that Camilla definitely stuck out to me as actually not only a character with good writing, but really consistent and fun to use in Conquest, which was definitely my favorite of the whole Fate series. And you'll see a lot of Conquest nods in the characters I discuss here. Next up is Cecilia. Again, another really interesting character, even from as simple as Fire Emblem 6's writing. So teacher to Roy, makes a huge impact in his growth. Kind of like a good connection between him and Lelina. She ends up getting bullied. Again, not going to spoil anything, but it feels like a good arc in a character that isn't a main character. And Cecilia, of course, also has a sort of connection because she's a teacher and I'm a teacher. So, you know, good character, like it. Yeah. Next up is Corrin, continuing the whole Conquest trend here. Another character that I really like because of the artistic design. No way, in any way, am I going to tell you guys that Corrin is a well-written character. Again, this is all subjective at the end of the day. You probably will have someone who says Corrin is the best character ever written, but no, not for me. But in terms of design and artistic, you know, kind of investment, I feel the design team behind Fates and Corrin in general really hit the ball here by making a character that was basically like a dragon, and its design was not done before. You know, we had like the blue-haired prince boy basically all the time, and here's Corrin, and Corrin's cool. The female one I feel is more appealing than the male one, but maybe that's because of the clothing choices, or I don't know, the feet, I guess, is weird, barefoot on a guy. I don't know. I'm not going to really look into too much, but I like the female design more than the male design. And there's a fair share of males on here. This isn't like full females, by the way. There's a male. So, all right, and here's a couple of favorites that make it onto my list, just for sheer meme value, okay? Like, you are my favorite unit because of the history behind it. And for those of you guys who follow me, you'll know that I abhorred Duma. Like, he was like so bad in his initial like debut of Ether Raids and such. And in Shadows of Valencia, he's basically a slob, a slug, a blob. There wasn't really much to Duma, again, in terms of, besides like history lessons in the game. It wasn't much to it. So in here you get him more fleshed out. He's aged really well, and he's one of my most consistent defense mythics, literally. So we have grown together gracefully, and I have literal clips and memes from my channel of me trashing him, and honestly I still do, because it's just great. The voice talent Josh does on this is amazing. I love Duma, and I can't believe I said that. Likewise, we have the other mythic, which would be Air, and Air has a history with me in a time where it was like rash decision time making, which was between Surtur and Air, and I chose Air, and I'm glad I did. And Air, I've used her as a carry. I've used her in plenty of content, plenty of PvE. I've used her in Arena. I've used her basically everywhere. Probably one of the most common units I've used here, one of them. And for that reason, same with like Brunnya, there's so much gameplay involved with me using Air that there's like a connection of making it one of my favorites. And this is why, like, in general, it's hard to just pick a few favorites. So I just wanted to go over many of them in this video. Okay, so maybe to a surprise to many, I actually really like the trio, like all of the White Wings, but Est and Palla in particular were the most common and the ones that I connected with most. So Est was basically like trapped in Valencia. Anyways, I didn't play much of Mars games, but my connection with Est is through Valencia, and Est was definitely one of my best units in that game, along with Palla. Actually, she was also used, but Palla and Est, and Palla feels like the big sister, which I can relate to, and Est again, being the one that I would care for in this situation. So, and being trapped. It's again, I can't go into the details of the story, but I did appreciate Est in the way she grows through supports and as a character, from being pretty useless to being pretty awesome. So Est is one of those investments that I did really enjoy. Of course, she also had a history on Fireball, but writing is what I really liked about Est. So again, Fjorm, similar to Air in this case. Fjorm is somewhere in between meme and gameplay for me, because we have, again, a huge history in being like the first legendary that I built up, similar to Air being the first mythic that I built up. So, I can really appreciate that. But Fjorm is strange. So not in terms of writing, not in terms of design too much, although design is kind of cool, but mostly gameplay. And it's mostly because Fjorm has seemed to always disappoint me in gameplay, and I've never seemed to make her consistent despite tons of fodder and tons of effort to try to do so. And even after Ice Mirror 2 and whatever, Attack Defense Unity, we're still in the same place. So Fjorm and I, we like to bang our heads against the wall. Most recent addition here would actually be Hana, and I really like the take of making Ninja Hana here, the whole dual wielding aspect. And just the costume is really well designed on this. Like, I really, when I look at this art, I think it's just really appealing to me. And I liked Hana, but I didn't really make her a favorite until basically I invested into her in Heroes and kind of got reminded of it, kind of like a memory. And then the Ninja art came out, and I'm like, okay, this is an easy choice for me, despite a couple other options that were still hanging around at the time between like Felix and Enna and such. So this was really easy, and it feels really nice to use someone like Hana. Next up is Jamke. This is more of a memory, but nonetheless, when Fireball was rampant Ether raids, there was an archer that I really wanted to commit to, and honestly it was like between him and Leon at that time, and my experience of using Leon in Valencia was disappointing. Despite me being like, I love archers and archery in general, I just didn't want to use Leon because I just didn't like him. So, and I remember playing FE4 just near the beginning, first 2 chapters, and actually liking Jamke more based on how he is and how his country and such. Again, not going into details, but he ended up being a pretty consistent and full of everything, like a very well-rounded favorite for me. Memes, gameplay, and a little bit of history that we really enjoyed. I hope his Refine brings him back so I can start using him more often again. Another character that I really appreciated because of design, which is Julia. And I just think that the voice talent, the art, everything here is just great. The way this looks is like really well done. I feel there's so many details to art like this, and I'm not usually very critical of art in general, but something like Legendary Corrin and Legendary Julia just really pop out to me, and the amount of effort that those artists made, and they, as a result of that, it's like looking at a holographic like Yu-Gi-Oh card or Pokemon card, and you just keep staring at it for no reason, and you're just like, I just really like this. Like that's basically with Julia here. And I guess that could be kind of shallow, but at least we're not judging people, right? We're just judging fictional content, and there's no harm in that, I hope. Next up is Kronya, who basically doesn't have writing, so you could, it's kind of similar to Brunnya, but even worse, honestly. Full of memes, and the art is weird as well. So Kronya is in the weirdest spot for me, but the reason she's here is generally because of that gameplay consistency. So I memed Kronya forever and still do, but the reality is Kronya was a very good staple in making my journey through Heroes much better. I wish I could still use her more often, but the meta just doesn't really allow for it. And we might just be in a situation where we're just waiting for Refine years from now until Kronya gets one, and then maybe I'll use her again. But I would like to. Okay, another like nostalgia choice, I suppose. Looking at Lyn and using Lyn is like similar to basically going back in 20 years, 15 years back in time and playing FE7 again and being like, I remember using Hector, Lyn, and Elwood all the time, and man, was it awesome seeing her crit and do like 20,000 pixelated animations on my GBA and being like, oh, that's so cool. So now Lyn gets a ninja, flying ninja, who can basically wipe maps by herself, and that's pretty awesome. Although I guess that's not really how Lyn is, but you know, she's had 7 ults where she's basically not doing anything, so finally she gets one where she can do that. Mia, same criteria. Remember using her years ago, playing Path of Radiance, my sword master of choice, and she finally got an ult that I felt I could use and didn't have to like fully commit or merge to. Here it is. I guess Mass Marth also being there is pretty cool, but this is mostly because of Mia, and again, another like nostalgia choice for me. Another Thracia character or FE or genealogy, holy war kind of character being Nanna. Another really nice looking character, honestly. In terms of design, I just really like the authenticity of the way that Nanna was designed, and it really shows in both her voice talent and the art. I mean, this had to be here, right? It even has the Deathbow Lancebreaker build. Who didn't expect this? This guy is like the king of memes, and as a result, he obviously fully memed my history in Heroes. And honestly, if I played FE5, the main character should just be Reinhardt. It shouldn't be Leaf, it shouldn't be Nanna, it should just be Reinhardt, and I know I would be playing Fire Emblem at that point, based on my experience in Heroes. Finally, the king of memes of basically my whole YouTube and Twitch channel. This guy's actually retired, although I guess he did kind of show up in Grand Conquest recently, but he's basically retired. I can't even bring him back with green dual infantry. It's just not worth it, considering I have Hana and Cowlick and so many other good options. But maybe one day, maybe some skill will bring him back. Maybe we'll get seasonal refines on non-preference weapons. Maybe something will happen. Just a stroke of luck that comes in and brings the meme back from the bench. But for now, he's just chilling on my home screen and not learning how to swim or finding the sea. Same as always. So to sum everything up, guys, if you made it this far in the video, then I do appreciate you as always, guys. This is basically what I talked about throughout the whole video. These, I guess you could say, are my favorite characters as of this time. And favorites change because, again, like gameplay characters, I didn't go into Heroes saying, yo, Fjorm is my favorite, just as she got released. I had to use her, play with her, invest in her, and then I built that affinity. So obviously characters in gameplay built that for me. The ones like in the nostalgia tab, obviously, are just like, you know, I remember these characters from the past. Same idea for characters in writing as well. But, you know, some are really some are home runs when it comes to art and design. And like, I guess female Corrin's a good example of this. I didn't care much for the original female Corrin and the art style. I like the refine though. Gloombreath's pretty cool. But the legendary one really pops to me. Same with Julia. And of course we have the memes. So that sums up everything. Nice clear way of looking at the 20 of my favorites. There's so many more. Obviously I didn't even talk about like Ike here or Niles, and I would love to bring them back, but these are the characters I use in Heroes, and these are my favorite in Heroes. And there's so many more characters I like, and honestly favorites are just so subjective. There's so many you could pick from. There's so many good characters, but if there's one character I didn't include here that I definitely would never include here, that would be Arthur, because I don't like that guy. That's about it. Alright guys, if you enjoyed the video, if you made it this far, thank you. Give it a thumbs up. do what you need to do to help out the channel. Subscribe if you haven't already. There's so many of you that are not. Do what you got to do. Thank you all for watching. Love you all. Hope you enjoyed this type of video. I'll do more if you do. See you in the next one. Peace.
It's over.